The morning sun poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Nathaniel Nate Whitmore's penthouse office, casting golden streaks across the Philadelphia skyline. At 40, Nate stood tall, his tailored charcoal suit accentuating his lean frame and broad shoulders. His sharp blue eyes scanned the city below, a domain he'd shaped through Whitmore Developments, his real estate empire. Today, his focus was on the Carver district. In this working-class neighborhood, an aging community center stood in the way of his successive triumph. A luxury condo tower that would redefine the city's eastern edge. He adjusted his cufflinks, a faint smile playing on his lips. Success was a language he spoke fluently. This project would be no exception. "Mr. Whitmore, your 9 o'clock is here." His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Send them in," Nate replied, his tone smooth and authoritative. He settled behind his sleek mahogany desk, its surface bare except for a single tablet displaying the Carver project's blueprints. The door opened, and two investors entered in crisp business attire. Their eyes widened slightly at seeing him, a reaction Nate was accustomed to. His presence, a blend of confidence and understated charm, had a way of commanding attention. He said, "Welcome to Whitmore Developments," rising to offer a firm handshake. "I'm Nate Whitmore. I understand you're interested in the Carver District project." "Yes," said the older investor, a woman with a nervous smile. "I'm Ellen Carter, and this is my colleague, David Reese. Your vision for the condos is inspiring." Nate's practiced smile flashed, the one that sealed deals and disarmed skeptics. "I'm glad you think so. Let's discuss how we can make this profitable for everyone." For the next hour, he guided them through the project's details, high-end amenities, waterfront views, and a projected 20% return on investment. By the meeting's end, Carter and Reese were sold, their signatures on a preliminary agreement. As they left, Reese slipped Nate a business card with a personal number scrawled on the back. Nate tossed it onto his desk, uninterested. Another conquest, another day. His phone buzzed with a text from Victor Lang, his business partner. "Carver site visit at 2 p.m. The mayor's office wants updates. Don't be late." Nate smirked. Victor's impatience was as predictable as the skyline. The last hurdle was the Carver Community Center, a dilapidated hub for after-school programs and adult classes. Nate had plans to replace it with condos that would draw Philadelphia's elite, and he wasn't about to let sentimentality, or a few locals, stand in his way. Across town, Aisha Thompson hurried down a cracked sidewalk in the Carver district, her dark curly hair bouncing with each purposeful step. Her warm brown complexion glowed under the morning light at 32, though her eyes betrayed a restless energy. She glanced at her watch, quickening her pace. "Come on, Zoe. We're cutting it close," she called to her 7-year-old daughter, who skipped a few steps behind, her lighter skin and matching curls a mirror of Aisha's, softened by her father's genes. "Mom, you're always rushing," Zoe teased, clutching her backpack. "School's not going anywhere." Aisha smiled, despite the pressure of the day ahead. "That's because there's always too much to do, sweetheart. And today's big. I've got that meeting at the community center after I drop you off." As a 4th-grade teacher and head of the Carver Preservation Committee, Aisha's life was a juggling act. The community center, a fixture in their neighborhood for decades, was threatened by Whitmore Developments. Aisha had rallied neighbors, gathered petitions, and even consulted a pro bono lawyer to save it. The center wasn't just a building. It was where Zoe learned to paint. Single parents like Aisha found affordable after-school care, and elders shared stories of Carver's resilient past. They reached Zoe's elementary school just as the bell rang. Aisha knelt, adjusting Zoe's backpack. "Mrs. Carter's picking you up today, okay? I'll be at the center until dinner." "I know, Mom," Zoe said, rolling her eyes before throwing her arms around Aisha's neck. "Good luck saving our center." Aisha watched Zoe dart into the school, her heart swelling with pride and worry. The Carver Community Center had been her lifeline since Zoe's father walked out 8 years ago, leaving her to raise their daughter alone. It was where she'd rebuilt her confidence, teaching art classes and connecting with neighbors who felt like family. Now, a billionaire wants to tear it down because no one in Carver could afford condos. Aisha rechecked her watch. 30 minutes to get to the center. She couldn't be late. At the center, a modest brick building with faded murals, Aisha found her best friend, Keisha, organizing chairs in the main hall. Keisha, a nurse with a sharp wit, handed her a folder of petitions. "Ready to take on the big shots?" she asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," Aisha replied, flipping through the documents. "Did the lawyer call back?" "Not yet, but these signatures should make noise." Keisha's eyes narrowed. "Word is, Nate Whitmore himself is showing up today. You know him. He owns half of Philly and acts like he owns the other half." Aisha's jaw tightened. She'd read about Whitmore, a white developer whose projects transformed neighborhoods, often pricing out locals. Carver was her home, where her grandparents had settled during the Great Migration, where she'd learned to navigate life as a black woman in a city that didn't always see her. She wasn't about to let it become another playground for the rich. Back in his office, Nate reviewed the Carver blueprints, and his mind was already on the site visit. Victor had warned that the locals were organizing, but Nate was confident. He'd faced protests before, offered jobs, made promises, and moved forward. This would be no different. Yet, as he gazed at the city below, a flicker of unease stirred. He'd built an empire, but lately, the victories felt hollow. Shaking off the thought, he grabbed his coat. Time to secure the future of Carver and his legacy. Aisha, meanwhile, stood in the community center's hall, rallying her committee. "This is our fight," she said, her voice steady. "We show them Carver's worth saving." As murmurs of agreement rose, she steeled herself for the battle ahead, unaware that meeting Nate Whitmore would challenge everything she believed about him and herself. The Carver Community Center's main hall buzzed with anticipation, its worn linoleum floors and faded murals starkly contrasting with the polished boardrooms Nate Whitmore frequented. He strode through the double doors, his tailored suit drawing every eye. The murmurs hushed, replaced by wary glances from the gathered residents. Nate scanned the crowd, expecting the usual resignation and grudging compliance. Instead, he met fierce brown eyes locked on him with unmistakable hostility. Aisha Thompson stood at the front, her curly hair pulled into a tight bun, her posture rigid as she clutched a folder of petitions. For the first time in years, Nate felt a jolt of unease. Leaning against a nearby table, Keisha whispered to Aisha, "That's him, Nate Whitmore. Looks like he owns the place already." Aisha's jaw tightened. "Not if I have anything to say about it." She'd spent weeks rallying the neighborhood, fueled by stories of families displaced by Whitmore Development's projects. The center was more than a building. It was where she'd taught Zoe to read, where neighbors shared meals during hard times. She wasn't about to let it become another glass tower for Philadelphia's elite. Nate approached the front, his business partner Victor Lang trailing behind, a tablet in hand. Victor, wiry and sharp-eyed, muttered, "Let's make this quick. The mayor's expecting a progress report." Nate nodded, but his attention was fixed on Aisha. Her defiance was a puzzle. Most opponents softened under his charm, but she looked ready to fight. The meeting began with Aisha stepping forward, her voice clear and commanding. "The Carver Community Center has served this neighborhood for decades. It's where our kids learn, our parents find jobs, and we come together. Whitmore Developments wants to tear it down for condos we can't afford. We're here to say no." She held up the petition, its pages thick with signatures. 300 families stand with us. We're not invisible. The crowd erupted in applause, and Nate felt the room's energy shift against him. He stepped forward, his smile calculated to disarm. Ms. Thompson, I'm Nate Whitmore, and I respect your passion. But let's talk progress. Our project will bring jobs, infrastructure, and economic growth. We're not erasing Carver. We're elevating it. Aisha's eyes narrowed. Elevating it for whom? The wealthy buyers who live in your condos? What about the kids who need this center after school because their parents work 2 jobs? What about my daughter? Her voice trembled with conviction, and Nate's confidence wavered. Her words weren't just rhetoric. They carried the weight of lived experience. He extended his hand, expecting a handshake to diffuse the tension. I hear you, Ms. Thompson. Let's find a solution that works for everyone. Aisha stared at his hand, then met his gaze, her expression unyielding. I know who you are, Mr. Whitmore. I'm Aisha Thompson, head of the Carver Preservation Committee, and we're not here to negotiate our home away. The rebuff stung, but Nate's intrigue deepened. She wasn't swayed by his presence or promises, a rarity in his world. Victor, sensing the stalemate, leaned in. Nate, the mayor's office is calling. We need to wrap this up. Nate waved him off, his eyes still on Aisha. Tell them I'll call back. Ms. Thompson and I are discussing something important. Aisha crossed her arms. We're done talking. The meeting's starting. She turned to address the crowd, leaving Nate momentarily sidelined. He watched her, captivated by the fire in her movements, the way she commanded the room without effort. For the first time, he felt like an outsider. The meeting unfolded with intensity. Aisha and her committee presented heartfelt testimonials. A single father who relied on the center's job training, a teenager who found safety in its after-school programs. Nate countered with promises of temporary jobs and a community fund, but the residents' skepticism was palpable. Throughout, he found himself stealing glances at Aisha. Her passion, her refusal to back down, stirred something unfamiliar, a challenge he wanted to meet, not conquer. As the meeting ended without resolution, Nate approached Aisha again, undeterred. She was gathering papers, her movements brisk. Ms. Thompson, your presentation was impressive. I want to continue this discussion over dinner, somewhere we can talk without an audience. Aisha paused, her disbelief evident. Are you asking me out while trying to bulldoze something I love? Her tone was sharp, but Nate caught a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. He said, I'm asking to find a solution. His voice softer. And yes, I see you. Compelling. One dinner, strictly business, to explore options for the center. Keisha, overhearing, nudged Aisha. Hear him out. It might be your chance to make him squirm. Aisha shot her a look but relented, her practicality outweighing her suspicion. Fine. One dinner. But don't expect me to be charmed, Mr. Whitmore. I'm here for Carver, not you. Nate's smile widened, genuine this time. I wouldn't expect anything less. Tomorrow, at 7 o'clock. I'll send the details. As Aisha nodded curtly and walked away, Nate felt a thrill he hadn't known in years. She wasn't just saying no for effect. She meant it, and that made him want to know her more. Later, Aisha sat with Keisha at her apartment, sipping tea as Zoe colored nearby. You sure about this dinner? Keisha asked, eyebrow raised. Whitmore has a reputation. He's a smooth talker and gets what he wants. Aisha sighed. I'm not falling for it. But I must try if there's a chance to save the center. Her resolve was firm, but a small part wondered about the man behind the suit. She pushed the thought aside, focusing on the fight ahead. Tomorrow, she'd face Nate Whitmore on her terms, ready to defend her community, and her heart. The late afternoon light filtered through the mismatched curtains of Aisha Thompson's Carver district apartment, casting a warm glow over the cozy living room. Photos of Zoe's school milestones and vibrant artwork adorned the walls, a testament to their tight-knit world. Aisha sat at the small kitchen table, helping Zoe with her math homework, but her mind was only half on the fractions worksheet. The Carver Community Center meeting replayed in her head. Nate Whitmore's confident smile, his outstretched hand she'd refused, his unexpected dinner proposal. Her stomach twisted with a mix of determination and unease. "Mom, you're staring at the wall again," Zoe said, her pencil pausing mid-scribble. Her curls bounced as she tilted her head, eyes wide with curiosity. "What's wrong?" Aisha forced a smile, tucking a stray curl behind Zoe's ear, and just thinking about the center, sweetheart. "We're fighting hard to keep it." Zoe nodded, her expression serious. "Why do they want to take it away?" "It's where I made my constellation painting." Aisha's heart ached at the simplicity of the question. She set down her pen, choosing her words carefully. "Some people, like Mr. Whitmore, see the center as just a building they can replace with something fancy. But to us, it's home, where we learn and belong. That's why I'm meeting him tomorrow to ensure he understands." Zoe's eyes lit up. "You're gonna win, Mom. You always do." She paused, then added, "Why don't we ever leave Carver? Keisha says it's tough here." The question caught Aisha off guard, pulling her into memories she rarely revisited. She leaned back, her gaze drifting to a framed photo of her grandparents, who'd settled in Carver during the Great Migration, building a life despite redlining and discrimination. "Carver's our history, Zoe. Your great-grandparents fought to make this place ours. They opened a grocery store when banks wouldn't lend to folks like them. This neighborhood's not just streets. Our roots, our strength. We stay because we fight for what matters." Zoe nodded, though her brow furrowed. "But isn't it hard sometimes?" Aisha's throat tightened. It was hard when she was passed over for a teaching promotion because her style didn't fit the school's image. Hard when she overheard parents whispering about those Carver kids. But she'd learned to carry that weight, just as she'd brought the pain of her ex, Jamal, walking out 8 years ago. She could still hear his voice, sharp with frustration. "You're wasting your life teaching in that broken neighborhood, Aisha. You'll never get ahead." He'd mocked her dreams, her pride in Carver. And when Zoe was born, he'd left, claiming fatherhood wasn't his thing. The betrayal had scarred her, teaching her to guard her trust, especially with men like Nate, whose world seemed to glide on privilege. "It is hard," Aisha admitted, her voice soft. "But hard doesn't mean bad. Carver's where I found my purpose, where I met Keisha, where you learned to shine. We don't run from tough, we make it better." Zoe grinned, satisfied, and returned to her homework. Aisha watched her, her resolve hardening. The center wasn't just a cause. It was her legacy, tied to her grandparents' struggles and survival. Nate Whitmore, with his polished suits and easy promises, didn't belong in that story. Yet, his dinner invitation lingered, a challenge she couldn't ignore. Keisha arrived later, kicking off her shoes and plopping onto the couch with a mug of tea. Zoe, now coloring, giggled as Keisha teased her about her latest art project. Aisha joined them and handed Keisha a stack of petition updates. "You're still on for watching Zoe tomorrow night?" she asked. "Course," Keisha said, flipping through the papers. "But let's talk about this dinner with Mr. Fancy. You sure you're ready to face him?" Aisha sighed, sinking into a chair. "I'm not sure of anything with him. He's smooth, Keisha. Too smooth. What if he's playing nice to get his condos?" Keisha raised an eyebrow. "And what if he's not?" You saw how he looked at you, like you're the only one in the room. That ain't just business. Aisha shook her head, her fingers tracing the edge of her mug. Men like him don't change. I learned that the hard way. She paused, her mind flashing to Jamal's final words. You're too stubborn, Aisha. You'll end up alone. The memory stung, not because she missed him, but because it echoed her fear, that trusting again might mean losing herself. Keisha's voice softened. I get it. After Jamal, you built walls higher than those condos Whitmore wants. But you're not that 24-year-old anymore. You're stronger. If he's playing, you'll see through it. And if he's real, you might surprise yourself. Aisha managed a small smile. You're too optimistic. This is about the center, nothing else. But even as she spoke, she felt a flicker of doubt. Nate's intensity at the meeting, his refusal to back down, had stirred something. Curiosity, maybe, or the thrill of being seen. Uh-huh, Keisha teased, sipping her tea. Just don't wear that old cardigan. That blue dress you got? That's the one. Show him you mean business, and you're not invisible. Zoe looked up from her coloring. You're gonna look pretty, Mom, like a superhero. Aisha laughed, pulling Zoe into a hug. My biggest cheerleader. Now, bedtime superhero. As Zoe scampered off to brush her teeth, Aisha turned to Keisha. I'm not falling for his charm. I'm doing this for Carver and Zoe. Keisha nodded, her eyes knowing. I believe you. But don't close the door on something good just because you're scared. You deserve more than just fighting, Aisha. Alone later, Aisha stood before her closet, pulling out the navy blue dress Keisha had mentioned. She held it up, imagining the dinner, Nate's piercing gaze, questions about the center, the stakes of every word. She'd face him with the same strength she'd carried through years of raising Zoe, of holding Carver together. But as she hung the dress back up, she couldn't shake the memory of Nate's smile, not the practiced one, but the fleeting, genuine one when she'd challenged him. It unsettled her, a crack in her defenses she wasn't ready to name. Tomorrow, she'd walk into that restaurant armed with petitions and pride, ready to protect her community. But deep down, a small voice wondered if Nate Whitmore might see more than the fighter. If he might see her. The chandeliers of Le Jardin, one of Philadelphia's most exclusive restaurants, cast a soft glow over linen-draped tables, where the city's elite sipped wine and exchanged quiet laughter. Aisha Thompson stepped inside, her navy blue dress hugging her curves with understated elegance. She smoothed the fabric, her fingers betraying a flicker of nerves. The maitre d' greeted her with a practiced smile, but she caught the subtle once-over she'd endured at upscale venues where she felt like an outsider. Squaring her shoulders, she followed him to a secluded table by a window overlooking the Delaware River, where Nate Whitmore waited. Nate stood as she approached, his tailored suit accentuating his commanding presence, his blue eyes lit with appreciation, though he kept his smile restrained. Ms. Thompson, you look stunning. Thank you for coming. Mr. Whitmore, Aisha nodded, sitting stiffly. This place is a lot for a business meeting. Her gaze swept the room, noting the predominantly wealthy clientele, their glances lingering on her with curiosity or judgment. She'd felt it before at parent-teacher conferences or faculty events, the unspoken question of whether she belonged. Good food fosters good conversation, Nate replied smoothly, pulling out her chair. And please, call me Nate. Then I'm Aisha, she said, her tone cautious but firm. But let's be clear, I'm here for the community center, nothing more. Of course, he said, signaling the waiter. Water for now, or would you like wine? Water's fine, Aisha replied, her eyes scanning the ornate menu. The prices made her wince inwardly. Her monthly grocery budget could barely cover a single entree. She set it down, focusing on Nate. "You mentioned a renovation plan. I want details." Nate leaned forward, his enthusiasm evident. "I've been rethinking our approach since the meeting. Your passion for the center made me see it differently." He pulled out his phone, displaying sketches of a modernized Carver community center, updated classrooms, an expanded computer lab, a rooftop playground for kids like Zoe. "We'd preserve the building's character while making it a state-of-the-art facility. The programs stay intact, fully funded." Aisha took the phone, her skepticism warring with curiosity. The plans were thorough, addressing every concern she'd raised: accessibility, safety, and community needs. She handed it back, her expression guarded. "And what's in it for you?" "There's always a catch with deals like this." Nate's smile faltered, but he met her gaze. "Development rights to the lot behind the center. We'd build a smaller condo project there, leaving the center untouched. The rooftop playground would replace the current one with a safer and modern play area." Aisha's eyes narrowed. "That lot's part of the center's property. Kids play there. You're asking us to trade one piece of our home for another." "We'd ensure the community benefits," Nate countered. "The renovation's free. We'd add a scholarship fund for the after-school programs." "I'm not here to take, Aisha. I'm trying to build something better." She studied him, searching for the slick developer she'd expected. His sincerity was disarming, but her instincts, honed by years of broken promises, held firm. "Why the change of heart? Yesterday, you were ready to bulldoze the whole block. Is this about good PR or something else?" Nate hesitated, his fingers tapping the table. "A bit of both." "Your speech hit me. Those families, your daughter. I've built towers, but I've never built something that matters like that. And..." He paused, his voice softening. "You're not like anyone I've met. You don't back down, and I respect that." Aisha's breath caught, his words stirring a warmth she quickly suppressed. "Save the flattery, Nate. I've heard it before, and it doesn't change facts. If this is a delay tactic, or your renovation prices out our people, we'll fight harder." He said I'd expect nothing less, a genuine smile breaking through. "I'll put it all in writing, guarantees, budgets, timelines. You and your committee can review every detail." The waiter returned, setting down water and a basket of artisanal bread. Aisha took a sip, her mind racing. The plans were solid, but trusting Nate meant risking more than the center. She'd learned to read men like him, charming, powerful, used to winning. Yet, his eyes held a flicker of something tangible that made her want to believe. Their food arrived, a delicate plate of seared scallops for her, steak for him. Aisha took a bite, unable to hide her appreciation for the exquisite flavor. "This is incredible," she admitted, then caught herself. "But you didn't need to go to all this trouble." "It's no trouble," Nate said, his gaze steady. "I wanted tonight to matter. So, tell me about the center. What makes it so vital to you?" Aisha paused, the question pulling her back to Carver's heart. "It's where I became me again. After my ex left, I was a lost single mom, barely making ends meet. The center gave me a place to teach art, to connect. It's where Zoe feels safe, where neighbors become family. You can't put a price on that." Nate nodded, his expression thoughtful. "And Zoe, is she in the after-school program every day?" "Most days," Aisha said. A proud smile tugged at her lips. "She's my world. The center's a lifeline for us, for parents who can't afford private care." "I'm starting to see that," Nate said, his voice quiet. "I've been so focused on building up that I forgot what it means to build for." Aisha's guard softened, just a fraction. His words felt earnest, but she couldn't shake the memory of other promises, politicians, developers, even her ex, who'd let her down. She set her fork down, her tone firm. If you mean that, prove it, not with dinners or sketches, but with actions. Carver's not a project. It's our home. Nate leaned closer, undeterred. I will. But I'd like to know you better, Aisha. Not just as the committee head, but as you. One dinner doesn't have to be the end. Her heart skipped, his intensity catching her off guard. This is business, Nate. My life's complicated. Zoe, work, the center. I don't have room for more. Maybe complicated's worth it, he said softly, his eyes holding hers. I'm not asking for promises, just a chance to talk again. Aisha looked away, the river's reflection shimmering outside. She wanted to dismiss him, to keep her walls up, but his persistence, and that unguarded look in his eyes, chipped at her resolve. We'll see, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. For now, let's stick to the center. Nate nodded, respecting her boundary. Fair enough. I'll have the full proposal sent tomorrow. As they finished their meal, the air between them crackled with unspoken possibilities, a tension that was as much about the center as it was about them. The Carver Community Center hummed with after-school activity, children's laughter echoing through its worn halls as Aisha Thompson navigated the crowded art room. She'd volunteered to lead a painting class. A weekend ritual grounded her in the community she fought for. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nate Whitmore. At the center for a site visit. Can I see you and Zoe at 5:30? Aisha hesitated, her fingers hovering over the screen. The dinner at Le Jardin had left her unsettled. Nate's sincerity had chipped at her defenses, but trusting him felt like a gamble. She typed a quick reply. We'll be here. As the clock neared 5:30, Zoe burst from the art room, her smock splattered with paint. Mom, is Mr. Nate coming? He said he'd look at my constellation project. Her eyes sparkled with excitement, and Aisha's stomach tightened. Zoe's attachment to Nate was growing too fast, a reminder of the risks Aisha feared. Calm down, sweetheart, Aisha said, smoothing Zoe's curls. He's just visiting the center. Don't get your hopes up. Before Zoe could protest, Nate appeared in the doorway, his tailored jacket slightly out of place among the center's chipped paint and cluttered tables. His presence drew curious glances from kids and volunteers alike, but he focused on Aisha and Zoe. Hope I'm not interrupting, he said, his smile warm but restrained. Zoe bounded toward him. Mr. Nate, see my painting. She grabbed his hand, pulling him to a table where a vibrant canvas depicted a starry night sky, constellations labeled in her careful handwriting. It's for Mom's birthday next week. Don't tell her. It's a secret. Nate knelt to her level, studying the artwork with genuine interest. This is incredible, Zoe. You've got a real talent. What's this one? He pointed to a cluster of stars. That's Orion, Zoe said proudly. Mom taught me about it. She says the stars are like stories. They are always there if you know where to look. Aisha watched from the sidelines, her heart softening despite herself. Nate's attention to Zoe was effortless, not the calculated charm she'd expected. He asked questions, listened to Zoe's chatter, and even laughed when she smudged paint on his sleeve. For a moment, Aisha saw a different man, not the developer out to reshape Carver, but someone who could fit into their world. Zoe, why don't you clean up? Aisha said, breaking the moment. Mr. Whitmore and I need to talk about the center. Zoe pouted but obeyed, scampering off to wash her brushes. Nate stood, brushing paint from his sleeve with a grin. She's a force of nature. You've done a fantastic job with her. Aisha crossed her arms, her guard still up. Thanks, but flattery doesn't change the stakes. What did you want to discuss? Nate pulled out his phone, showing updated renovation sketches. Based on your feedback, I've refined the plans. More space for art classes and a dedicated tutoring room. I want this to work for everyone, especially families like yours. Aisha scanned the sketches, impressed but cautious. These look good, but I must review them with the committee. We're not signing off until we're sure. I wouldn't expect less, Nate said, his eyes meeting hers. I want to continue this over dinner. Nothing fancy. Just at your place, if that's okay. I want to spend more time with you and Zoe. Aisha's breath caught. The invitation felt personal, dangerous. She said we're just having leftovers and testing him. Nothing like Le Jardin. Leftovers sound perfect, Nate replied, undeterred. I'm not here for the food, Aisha. Zoe, returning with clean hands, overheard. Can Mr. Nate come for dinner, Mom? Please? Her pleading eyes were impossible to resist. Aisha sighed, defeated by her daughter's enthusiasm. Fine. But it's a school night, so no staying late. Understood, Nate said, his smile broadening. I'll follow you home. The aroma of reheated lasagna filled the air at Aisha's modest apartment. Zoe set the table with mismatched plates, chattering about school, as Nate rolled up his sleeves to help with the salad. His awkward chopping drew a giggle from Zoe. You've never made salad before, have you? Is it that obvious? Nate laughed, slicing a cucumber with exaggerated care. My kitchen's more for show than use. Aisha watched, a reluctant smile tugging at her lips. Nate's ease in her small, cluttered kitchen was unexpected, starkly contrasting to his penthouse world. Over dinner, Zoe dominated the conversation, recounting a story about her teacher's pet hamster escaping. Nate listened intently, asking questions that made Zoe beam. Aisha felt a pang. Zoe hadn't been this animated with a stranger since her father left. As they ate, Zoe's curiosity turned to Nate. Do you live in a big house all by yourself? Don't you get lonely? Aisha's fork paused, her protective instincts flaring. Zoe, that's enough. It's okay, Nate said gently, turning to Zoe. Sometimes, yeah, it gets quiet. I've been so busy building things, I forgot how nice it is to share a meal like this. Zoe nodded wisely. Mom's always busy too. That's why she doesn't have a boyfriend. Zoe! Aisha's cheeks warmed, embarrassment mixing with worry. Zoe's openness reminded her how quickly she attached and how easily she could be hurt. Nate chuckled, diffusing the tension. Your mom's got a lot on her plate. She's a superhero, like you said. He glanced at Aisha, his eyes warm. But I'm hoping she'll let me stick around to help with the dishes. Aisha shook her head, amused despite herself. You're persistent, I'll give you that. After dinner, she sent Zoe to start her homework, leaving her alone with Nate at the sink. He scrubbed plates with surprising diligence, his expensive watch glinting under the kitchen light. Thanks for tonight, he said, handing her a clean dish. I meant what I said. This feels good. Real. Aisha dried the dish, her guard wavering. Please don't get used to it. I'm still not sure what you're after, Nate. Just a chance, he said softly, his eyes holding hers. I want to know you and Zoe, and make things right with the center. She looked away, her heart racing. His sincerity was hard to dismiss, but the memory of past betrayals loomed. We'll see, she murmured, focusing on the dish. As Nate left, promising to send the complete renovation plans, Aisha leaned against the door, Zoe's laughter echoing in her mind. She wanted to protect her daughter from heartbreak, but Nate's presence was already weaving into their lives, and she wasn't sure she could stop it, or if she wanted to. The Philadelphia skyline glittered beyond the glass walls of Nate Whitmore's penthouse office, but his attention was fixed on a tablet displaying the Carver Community Center's revised renovation plans. Blueprints detailed a modernized facility, new art studios, a computer lab, a rooftop playground, all shaped by Aisha Thompson's fierce advocacy. Nate leaned back in his chair, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The dinner at Aisha's apartment, Zoe's infectious laughter, and the warmth of their modest kitchen lingered in his mind. For the first time, a project felt more than a deal. It felt personal. His phone buzzed, snapping him back to reality. A text from Victor Lang, his business partner, read, "Board's asking questions about Carver. Meet me now." Nate's jaw tightened. Victor's impatience had been grating lately. His skepticism about the renovation plans barely veiled. Nate grabbed his coat and headed to the conference room, where Victor waited, his wiry frame hunched over a laptop. "You're late," Victor said, not looking up. His sharp eyes flicked to Nate as he sat. "The board's not happy. These renovations are bleeding millions, millions we could have made on a full condo development. What's going on with you?" Nate kept his tone even. "The center's a community anchor. Renovating it builds goodwill, keeps the programs running, and gives us a condo project on the back lot. It's a win-win." Victor scoffed, slamming his laptop shut. "Goodwill? Since when do you care about that? You're throwing away profits for some teacher and her kid. Aisha Thompson's got you wrapped around her finger." Nate's eyes flashed with irritation. "This isn't about Aisha. It's about doing something that lasts. The center matters to people, families, and kids like Zoe. I'm not the villain here." Victor leaned forward, his voice low. "You're not yourself, Nate. The board sees it, and so do I. You're risking our reputation for a crush. I've been loyal, covered your back for years. Please don't make me regret it." The veiled threat hung in the air. Nate studied Victor, noting the edge in his tone. They'd built Whitmore developments together, but Victor's ambition had always simmered beneath his loyalty, a hunger for control Nate had ignored until now. "The decision's made," Nate said firmly. "The board will see the value. Send them the updated financials." Victor stood, his smile cold. "Fine. But don't say I didn't warn you when this blows up." He left, leaving Nate with a nagging unease. Victor's words weren't just about business. There was something personal, a resentment Nate hadn't seen before. Across town, Aisha stood in the Carver Community Center's main hall, organizing files for the Preservation Committee. The memory of Nate's easy laughter at her kitchen table clashed with her instincts to stay guarded. Zoe's excitement about him was a warning. She couldn't let her daughter get attached to someone who might disappear. Her phone buzzed with a new email from Nate. "Preliminary plans attached. Let me know your thoughts." The attached document was meticulous, addressing every concern she'd raised. She frowned, torn between admiration and suspicion. Keisha burst in, carrying coffee and a knowing grin, and still staring at Whitmore's emails. "Girl, you're in deep." Aisha rolled her eyes, accepting the coffee. "It's just business. These plans are solid, but I'm waiting for the catch." Keisha perched on a table, her tone serious. "Maybe there isn't one. He's gone out of his way. Dinner, plans, listening to Zoe ramble about stars. That's not the Nate Whitmore from the headlines." Aisha sipped her coffee, her mind drifting to her ex, Jamal, whose charm had once felt genuine. "I've been burned before, Keisha. Men like Nate are successful and smooth, but don't stick around when things get real. And Zoe's already half in love with him." Keisha softened. "Zoe's a kid. She sees a nice guy who pays attention. But you're not just protecting her. You're protecting you. What if he's different?" Aisha shook her head. "I can't afford to find out. The center's my focus." But even as she spoke, Nate's earnest gaze at Le Jardin haunted her, a crack in the walls she'd built. Unbeknownst to them, a sleek black car idled outside the center, its tinted windows hiding a private investigator hired by Victor. The man adjusted his camera, snapping photos of Aisha as she left with Zoe, their laughter carrying across the street. Victor sat in his office, reviewing the investigator's initial report, Aisha's teaching schedule, Zoe's school, and her committee work. He smirked, plotting his next move. Nate's obsession with this woman was a weakness, one Victor could exploit to sway the board and seize control of Whitmore developments. A few well-placed leaks, maybe a story about Nate's inappropriate involvement with a local activist, could unravel his credibility. Back at the center, Aisha locked up, Zoe skipping beside her. "Can Mr. Nate come over again?" Zoe asked, her voice hopeful. "He liked my painting." Aisha's chest tightened. "He's busy, sweetheart. Let's focus on you and me." Zoe nodded, but her disappointment was palpable, mirroring Aisha's own conflicted heart. She wanted to dismiss Nate as a threat, a developer out of her world, but his actions, his plans, his time with Zoe, felt like more than strategy. That evening, Nate sat in his penthouse, the city's lights sprawling below. He dialed his assistant. "Get me everything you can on the Carver Center's programs. What they need, what's missing. I want to get this right." As he hung up, he thought of Aisha's guarded smile, Zoe's starry-eyed trust. For the first time, he wasn't just building a legacy. He was building a connection, one he wasn't ready to let go. Outside, the same black car was parked discreetly across from his building, its camera lens trained on his window. Victor's plan was in motion, and the stakes were higher than Nate or Aisha could imagine. The fluorescent lights of Aisha Thompson's fourth-grade classroom buzzed softly as she graded papers during her lunch break, and the Carver Elementary School was quiet, except for the distant chatter of recess. Her desk was cluttered with student artwork and a stack of renovation plans for the Carver Community Center, emailed by Nate Whitmore that morning. The plans were impressive. New classrooms, a computer lab, a rooftop playground. But Aisha's mind lingered on Nate's easy smile at her apartment, the way Zoe's face lit up when he praised her constellation painting. She pushed the thought away, focusing on a student's essay, but her heart wasn't in it. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nate. "Good news! Donated computers arriving at your school Monday. No strings attached." Aisha stared at the message, her chest tightening. The generosity was undeniable, but it felt like a step closer to a line she wasn't ready to cross. Zoe's excitement about Nate was already a warning sign, and Aisha's reaction, her pulse quickening at his texts, was even more troubling. Keisha burst into the classroom, balancing 2 coffee cups and a grin. "You're daydreaming again," she teased, handing Aisha a cup. "Let me guess, Mr. Whitmore's latest email?" Aisha rolled her eyes, but her cheeks warmed. "He donated computers to the school out of nowhere." Keisha whistled, sitting on the edge of a desk. "That's big. The man's going all out. So, why do you look like you just got bad news?" Aisha sighed, setting her pen down. "Because it's too much, Keisha. The center plans the dinner. Now, is this? It feels like he's trying to buy me, or at least my trust. And Zoe, she's already calling him Mr. Nate, like he's family." Keisha's expression softened. Zoe's a kid. She sees a guy who's kind to her. But this isn't just about her. You're scared of what you're feeling. Aisha's gaze dropped to her coffee, her mind drifting to a memory she rarely let surface. 7 years ago, she'd stood in a cramped apartment, pregnant with Zoe, as Jamal packed his bags. "You're too much, Aisha," he'd said, his voice cold. "Always fighting for this broken neighborhood, always needing more than I can give." He'd walked out, leaving her to face motherhood alone, her trust in promises shattered. She'd rebuilt her life, piece by piece. but the scar remained, a reminder that charm could hide betrayal. "I can't afford to be wrong again," Aisha said quietly. "Not for me, and not for Zoe. Nate's from a different world. Penthouse offices, boardrooms. What does he know about our lives? What if he's playing a game?" Keisha leaned forward, her tone gentle but firm. "You're not that scared girl anymore. You're a teacher, a leader, a mom who's got this community's back. If Nate's playing, you'll see through it. But what if he's not? What if he's trying to meet you where you are?" Aisha shook her head, her fingers tracing the edge of her cup. "Even if he's sincere, it isn't very easy. Zoe's already attached. If this goes wrong, she's the one who gets hurt. And me, I don't have time for heartbreak. The center, my job, Zoe, that's my life." Keisha's eyes narrowed. "You keep saying you don't have time, but you're human, Aisha. You smiled more at that dinner than I've seen in years. Wanting something for yourself is okay, not just for Carver or Zoe." The words hit harder than Aisha expected. She thought of Nate's awkward cucumber chopping, his genuine interest in Zoe's painting, the way his eyes softened when he looked at her. It wasn't just charm, it felt like care. But trusting that meant risking everything she'd protected since Jamal left. Her phone buzzed again, and another text from Nate said, "Can I stop by the center this afternoon? Want to see the space again before finalizing plans." Aisha's heart skipped, a mix of dread and anticipation. She typed back, "I'll be there with Zoe at 5:30. Keisha, reading over her shoulder, grinned. "Look at you, blushing like a teenager." "I'm not blushing," Aisha protested, touching her warm cheeks. "It's a site visit, not a date." "Uh-huh," Keisha said, standing as the lunch bell rang. "Just don't wear that frumpy cardigan you keep in your desk. That blue top you've got on? Keep it. Shows you're a woman, not just a warrior." Aisha laughed despite herself, shaking her head. "You're impossible." But as Keisha left, Aisha glanced at her reflection in a classroom window, smoothing her blue top. She wasn't dressing for Nate. She was for herself, for the strength she'd carry into this fight. Still, a small part of her wondered what he'd think when he saw her. At the center, Aisha helped Zoe with her backpack as the after-school program wound down. The halls were alive with kids painting, studying, laughing, a reminder of why she fought so hard. Nate arrived promptly at 5:30, his presence quieter this time, less imposing. He greeted Zoe with a high five, making her giggle, then turned to Aisha. "Thanks for letting me come. I want to get this right." Aisha nodded, her guard still up. "Let's walk through. Please show me what you're thinking." As they toured the center, Nate listened to her suggestions. More natural light for the art room, better access for disabled residents, taking notes on his phone. His focus was disarming, but Aisha kept her tone professional, determined to keep the line clear. Zoe tagged along, chattering about her day. "Mr. Nate, you should see our new library books. Mom helped pick them." Nate smiled, glancing at Aisha. "Your mom's pretty amazing, huh?" Aisha's cheeks warmed again, and she looked away, focusing on the peeling paint of the hallway. She couldn't let Zoe's enthusiasm, or her own fluttering heart, cloud her judgment. But as Nate knelt to tie Zoe's loose shoelace, a simple gesture that felt so natural, Aisha felt her resolve waver. He wasn't just a developer anymore. He was someone who saw her and Zoe. And that scared her more than any condo project. As they parted, Nate lingered by the door. "I'm not giving up, Aisha. In the center, or you." His voice was soft, earnest, and Aisha's breath caught. She nodded, unable to find words, and watched him leave, the weight of her dilemma heavier than ever. The boardroom of Whitmore Developments gleamed with polished oak and floor-to-ceiling windows. the Philadelphia skyline a backdrop to the tension simmering within. Nate Whitmore stood at the head of the table, his tailored suit crisp, but his expression resolute. The Carver Community Center's renovation plans glowed on a projector screen. Modernized classrooms, a rooftop playground, a computer lab, each detail shaped by Aisha Thompson's fierce advocacy and Zoe's infectious enthusiasm. Nate's usual focus on profit margins felt distant. Today, he was driven by something more profound, a purpose sparked by a teacher and her daughter. Victor Lang, his business partner, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his sharp eyes glinting with barely concealed disdain. The board members, a mix of seasoned investors and corporate strategists, murmured among themselves, their skepticism palpable. Victor broke the silence, his voice cutting. "Nate, this renovation will cost millions more than a full condo development. We're in the business of profit, not charity. Explain why we're betting on a community center in a neighborhood barely on the map." Nate met Victor's gaze, unfazed. The Carver Center isn't just a building. It's a lifeline. Single parents rely on their programs. Kids like Zoe find safety there. We renovate, free the programs, and build a smaller condo project on the back lot. It's profitable and creates goodwill. Philadelphia's watching, and so is the mayor's office. A board member, a gray-haired woman with a sharp suit, raised an eyebrow. "Goodwill's nice, but numbers talk. Your projections show a 30% cut in profits." "That's a hard sell." Nate tapped his tablet, pulling up revised financials. "Short term, yes, but the PR boost and community support open doors for future projects. We're not just building condos, we're building trust. That's worth more than a quick payout." His voice carried a conviction he hadn't felt in years, rooted in Aisha's words at their first meeting. "This center is our heart." Victor scoffed, leaning forward. "Trust. You're letting a school teacher cloud your judgment. Aisha Thompson's got you chasing ideals, not dollars. This isn't the Nate Whitmore who built this company." The room stilled, the accusation hanging heavy. Nate's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone steady. "I'm still that Nate, but I see more now. Aisha showed me what the center means. Real people, real impact. We can do both, profit and purpose. If you can't see that, maybe you're losing focus." Victor's eyes narrowed, a flicker of resentment betraying his calm facade. "Careful, Nate. The board trusts you, but push too far, and they'll question your priorities. So will I." Nate held his ground, addressing the board. "I'm not asking for blind faith. Review the plans, the numbers. We vote next week. But know this, the Carver project moves forward as planned." The board nodded, some reluctantly, others intrigued. As they filed out, Victor lingered, his cold smile a warning. "You're playing a dangerous game," he muttered, then left. Alone, Nate exhaled, the weight of the confrontation settling in. Victor's hostility wasn't just about business. It was personal, a power play Nate hadn't anticipated. He thought of Aisha, her guarded trust, and Zoe's starry-eyed questions. This project wasn't just for them. It was for him, a chance to be more than the man who built towers. He texted Aisha. "Board meeting went well, plans are on track. Celebration dinner tomorrow, just us." Across town, Aisha sat at her kitchen table, Zoe asleep in her room. The renovation plans lay open, their detail almost too good to be true. Nate's latest text glowed on her phone, stirring a familiar mix of warmth and wariness. She'd agreed to the dinner, but Keisha's words echoed, "You're human, Aisha. You deserve more than just fighting." Yet, the memory of Jamal's betrayal, his promises fading as he walked out, kept her cautious. Nate's actions felt genuine, but could she trust a man whose world was far from hers? She typed a reply. Great news. Dinner works, but I need to arrange for Zoe. 7 p.m. Nate's response was instant. I'll handle it. I spoke to Keisha, and she's free. Billionaire, 7 p.m. Wear something nice. Aisha groaned, half amused, half exasperated. He'd planned, roping in Keisha without asking. It was bold, like everything about him, making her smile despite herself. The next day, Aisha stood in her classroom, grading papers as Keisha popped in during recess. So, Billionaire? Keisha teased, leaning against a desk. Fancy. You gonna let Mr. Whitmore sweep you off your feet? Aisha shook her head, stacking papers. It's a celebration for the center, not a date. And you're in on it? Traitor. Keisha laughed. He called yesterday, all polite, asking if I could watch Zoe. I said yes because you need this. You've been fighting so long, Aisha. Let yourself breathe. Aisha sighed, her fingers tracing a student's drawing of a star. I want to, but Zoe's already attached. If this goes wrong, it's not just me who gets hurt. I can't do that to her. Keisha's voice softened. I get it. But Nate's not Jamal. He's showing up, not running. Give him a chance to prove it. Aisha nodded, her resolve wavering. That evening, she stood before her mirror, smoothing a red dress she'd worn to a cousin's wedding. It was simple but striking, a reminder she was more than a teacher or activist. She was a woman, too. Zoe peeked in, grinning. You look pretty, Mom. Is this for Mr. Nate? It's for the center, Aisha said firmly, but Zoe's giggle suggested she wasn't fooled. As Aisha left for Billionaire, her heart raced, caught between fear and a flicker of hope. Nate's commitment to the center was real, but his pull on her heart was a risk she wasn't sure she could take. The Carver Community Center buzzed with the vibrant chaos of its after-school programs, the air thick with the scent of tempera paint and the chatter of children. Aisha Thompson stood in the art room, wiping paint from her hands as she supervised a group of kids working on murals. Her thoughts drifted to Nate Whitmore's latest email, detailing the final Carver renovation plans, new art studios, a computer lab, and a rooftop playground. His commitment was undeniable, yet Aisha's heart remained guarded, haunted by the risk of letting him too close to her and Zoe's world. Oblivious to her mother's turmoil, Zoe sat at a nearby table, adding stars to her constellation painting with fierce concentration. Aisha's phone buzzed with a text from Nate. Here for a quick tour. Can I join you and Zoe? She hesitated, her fingers hovering. His persistence, dinners, donations, now this, felt like a tide pulling her towards something she wasn't ready to name. She typed back, Art room, 5:15. Zoe's finishing her project. As she hit send, Zoe looked up, her eyes bright. Is Mr. Nate coming, Mom? Aisha forced a smile, her stomach nodding. Yeah, sweetheart. He's checking on the center. Zoe's enthusiasm was a double-edged sword, a reminder of how quickly her daughter attached to kindness, and how deeply she could be hurt. Nate arrived minutes later, his tailored jacket slightly rumpled from the day, contrasting with the art room's messy charm. He greeted Aisha with a warm nod, but Zoe stole his attention, bounding over with her painting. Mr. Nate, look! I added the Big Dipper. The canvas glowed with vibrant stars, each labeled in her careful script. Nate knelt beside her, his smile genuine. This is amazing, Zoe. Your mom's birthday is going to be special with this. He pointed to a cluster of stars. What's this one? Cassiopeia, Zoe said proudly. Mom says it's like a queen in the sky. I want to give her something that shines like her. She lowered her voice, glancing at Aisha, who was helping another child. Don't tell her, okay? It's a surprise. Your secret's safe, Nate whispered, winking. He stood, catching Aisha's eye as she approached. She's got a gift. You must be proud. Aisha nodded, her expression softening. She's my everything. But let's talk plans. What's new with the renovation? Nate pulled out his phone, showing updated sketches. Per your feedback, we've added solar panels for sustainability and extra storage for art supplies. Work starts next month. His enthusiasm was infectious, but Aisha kept her focus professional, scanning the plans for hidden catches. Looks thorough, she admitted. The committee's impressed, but we'll need guarantees in writing. Access, funding, no rent hikes for programs. You'll have it all, Nate said, his gaze steady. I want this to be right, Aisha. For the community, for Zoe. Zoe, overhearing, tugged at Nate's sleeve. Mr. Nate, could we discuss the new roof so we can see the stars better? Nate grinned. That's a great idea. I'll add it to the plans. Zoe beamed, and Aisha's heart sank. Zoe's growing attachment was a warning bell, echoing her fears of trusting too soon. As the art class ended, Zoe lingered near Nate, her voice soft. Mr. Nate, do you ever wish you had kids? Mom says you're busy, but you're nice. You'd be a good dad. Aisha froze, her breath catching. Zoe, that's enough. Pack your brushes. Nate, unfazed, knelt again. I never thought much about it, Zoe. I've been busy with work, like your mom said. But spending time with you, it's incredible. His voice was gentle, and Zoe's smile widened, but Aisha's chest tightened with dread. Later, Aisha tucked Zoe into bed at their apartment, and the constellation painting dried in the living room. Zoe's eyes were heavy, but her voice was earnest. Mom, I like Mr. Nate. He listens, like you do. Do you think he could stay around, like a dad? Aisha's throat closed, her worst fear laid bare. She brushed a curl from Zoe's forehead, forcing steadiness into her voice. Sweetheart, Mr. Nate's helping with the center, but we don't know him well. You and me, we're a team, right? We don't need anyone else. Zoe nodded, but her eyes glistened. I know, but sometimes I wish we had someone else too. Daddy left, and I don't want Mr. Nate to go like him. Her voice broke, and Aisha pulled her close, her eyes stinging. She'd shielded Zoe from the pain of her father's abandonment, but the longing remained, raw and honest. I'll always protect you, Zoe, Aisha whispered. No matter what. As Zoe drifted to sleep, Aisha sat by her bed, her mind churning. Nate's kindness and attention to Zoe were unraveling her defenses, but Zoe's words, I don't want Mr. Nate to leave, echoed her buried hope. She'd built a life on strength, on guarding her heart, but Nate's presence was a crack in that armor, one she wasn't sure she could mend. Downstairs, Aisha checked her phone and found a new text from Nate. She loved seeing Zoe's passion today. You're raising a star. Dinner at Billionaire still on. She stared at the words, her heart torn between caution and the pull of possibility. Keisha's voice rang in her mind. You're human, Aisha. You deserve more. But letting Nate in meant risking her heart and Zoe's. She typed a reply. Dinner's on. 7 p.m. As she hit send, she felt the weight of her choice, a step toward a future she couldn't yet trust. The harbor lights of Philadelphia shimmered across the Delaware River, casting a golden glow over Billionaire's elegant dining room. Aisha Thompson sat across from Nate Whitmore, her red dress a vibrant contrast to the restaurant's muted opulence. She felt the weight of curious glances from nearby tables, a familiar sting that reminded her of places where she stood out. But Nate's steady gaze anchored her, his tailored suit and easy smile softening the room's formality. Tonight was meant to celebrate the Carver Community Center's renovation approval, but the air between them crackled with something more. "You look beautiful," Nate said, handing her a small bouquet of wildflowers as she arrived. "These reminded me of you, vibrant, grounded." Aisha's cheeks warmed, her fingers brushing the petals. She teased, "That's a nice way to start a business dinner," but her voice held a hint of vulnerability. She'd spent the day wrestling with Zoe's words, "I don't want Mr. Nate to leave," and her own reluctant pull toward him. This wasn't just about the center anymore. Nate grinned, pulling out her chair. "I'm glad you came. I wanted tonight to be special." The maitre d', recognizing Nate, led them to a secluded table by the window, the river's reflections dancing outside. Aisha settled in, her guard still up, but fraying under Nate's attentiveness. The waiter poured champagne, and Nate raised his glass to the Carver Center and new beginnings. His eyes held hers, the toast carrying a weight beyond the project. Aisha clinked her glass against his. "To the center," she said firmly, then softened. "And to new possibilities." Surprisingly, the admission slipped out, but she didn't retract it. Their conversation flowed effortlessly as they savored a meal of roasted duck and herb-crusted salmon. Nate shared stories of his childhood. His mother, a schoolteacher who'd instilled a love for learning before cancer took her. "She'd have liked you," he said, his voice quiet. "She believed in fighting for what matters, like you do with Carver." Aisha's heart skipped a beat, his sincerity disarming. She opened up, hesitantly at first, about her journey. "When Zoe's dad left, I was 7 months pregnant. He said I was too focused on Carver, too stubborn to get ahead. I've been proving him wrong ever since, but it's not easy. The center, my job, they're what keep us grounded." Nate's warm and steady hand covered hers on the table. "His loss. You and Zoe are extraordinary. I see it every time I'm with you." Aisha didn't pull away, the touch sparking a warmth she'd fought for weeks. "You're good at this, Nate," she said, half smiling. "But I'm still figuring out if I can trust it." "I'm not going anywhere," he said softly. "I'm learning what matters, thanks to you." His words echoed Zoe's painting, stars that stayed, stories that endured. Aisha's resolve wavered, her fears of betrayal clashing with the pull of his gaze. After dinner, they strolled along the harbor promenade, the night air cool against Aisha's skin. She shivered slightly, and Nate draped his jacket over her shoulders, his fingers lingering. "Such a gentleman," she teased, but the gesture touched her, a quiet care she hadn't expected. "My mom raised me right," Nate said, smiling. "She'd have loved your fire, Aisha. Tell me more about Carver. What makes it home?" Aisha paused, the river's breeze tousling her curls. "It's the people. Neighbors who share meals when times are tough. Kids like Zoe find their spark. It's not perfect, but it's ours. I've seen too many places like it erased by people like—" She stopped, catching herself. "Like me?" Nate finished, his tone gentle but unflinching. "I'm trying to change that, Aisha. I want to build with you, not against you." Their eyes locked, the world fading to the rhythm of the river. Nate leaned in slowly, giving her space to pull away. But Aisha didn't. She met him halfway, their lips touching in a soft, tentative kiss that deepened with unexpected intensity. His arms encircled her, drawing her closer, and Aisha felt a surge of emotion, hope, fear, desire she hadn't allowed in years. When they parted, breathless, Nate rested his forehead against hers. "He admitted that I've wanted to do that since you glared at me in that meeting," a grin breaking through. Aisha laughed softly, her heart racing. I was so sure I'd hate you. Now, I'm unsure what I feel, but I'm willing to find out. They walked back to his car, hand in hand, the night holding a promise neither had expected. Aisha leaned against his shoulder, letting herself dream, just for tonight, of a future where their worlds could meet. Nate's classic convertible purred through the city, the wind carrying their quiet laughter. Unseen, a sleek black car trailed them at a distance, its driver adjusting a telephoto lens. Victor Lang's private investigator snapped photos of the kiss, the bouquet, and their intertwined hands. Victor reviewed the images in his office, a smirk curling his lips. Nate's community hero image was a house of cards, and these photos were the wind to topple it. A well-timed leak to the press, hinting at an improper relationship influencing the Carver project, could sway the board and cement Victor's control. As Nate and Aisha drove into the night, unaware, Victor's plan tightened its grip, threatening the fragile bond they'd just begun to build. The boardroom of Whitmore Developments buzzed with tension, its sleek oak table reflecting the Philadelphia skyline through towering windows. Nate Whitmore stood at the head, his posture steady despite the storm brewing. The board members, a mix of investors and executives, flipped through reports on the Carver Community Center renovation, their expressions ranging from cautious interest to outright skepticism. Victor Lang sat at the far end, his sharp eyes gleaming with calculated malice, a manila envelope tucked under his arm. Nate sensed the trap, but kept focused, determined to secure the center's future and his growing bond with Aisha Thompson. Victor stood, his voice smooth but cutting. Ladies and gentlemen, the Carver project is a financial misstep. We're hemorrhaging millions on a community center when luxury condos could triple our returns. Nate's judgment is compromised. He slid the envelope across the table, photos spilling out. Nate and Aisha on the harbor promenade, their kiss captured in grainy detail. He's entangled with Aisha Thompson, the committee head, skewing our priorities for personal gain. The boardroom erupted in murmurs, heads turning to Nate. His jaw tightened, but he'd anticipated Victor's move. Days ago, a discreet tip from his assistant about a private investigator had put him on guard. Victor's playing dirty, Nate said, his voice calm but firm. Those photos are a distraction. Let's talk facts. He tapped his tablet, projecting financials. The Carver renovation cuts short-term profits by 20%, but it secures city contracts and public support in the long term. It's strategic, not personal. A board member, a stern woman in a navy blazer, frowned at the photos. This looks inappropriate, Nate. Are you using company resources to pursue a relationship? Nate met her gaze. My personal life is irrelevant. Aisha Thompson's advocacy showed me the center's value. Families and kids like her daughter Zoe depend on it. I'm not chasing a fling. I'm building trust in a city we've profited from for years. He pulled up a second slide, detailing Victor's recent moves, secret meetings with rival developers, and attempts to rezone the Carver lot behind Nate's back. Victor's not protecting our interests. He's undermining them for his gain. The board's murmurs grew sharper, eyes shifting to Victor. He bristled, his composure cracking. You're deflecting, Nate. This is about your obsession with a teacher, not my actions. Nate stepped forward, his voice steady. I checked our records. You've been funneling funds to a shell company tied to a rival developer. You want the Carver lot for yourself, Victor. The board deserves the truth. He handed out documents, emails, and bank records, meticulously gathered over days. I'm still the majority shareholder. My vision drives this company, and the Carver project moves forward. The boardroom fell silent, the weight of Nate's evidence undeniable. The stern woman spoke first. Victor, these documents are troubling. We'll need an audit. Others nodded, their trust in Victor eroding. Nate seized the moment. I move to approve the Carver renovation and suspend Victor, pending investigation. The vote was swift and unanimous, with Victor's lone dissent. He stormed out, his glare promising retaliation. Later, Nate called Aisha, his voice heavy but relieved. The board approved the plans. Work starts next month, but there's something else. Victor leaked photos of us from the promenade. They might hit the press. Aisha felt her stomach drop at her apartment, where Zoe was coloring nearby. Photos? Of what, Nate? Her tone was sharp, her protective instincts flaring. Our kiss, he said softly. I'm sorry. I should have seen this coming. Victor's trying to discredit me, paint our relationship as a conflict of interest. Aisha's hand tightened on her phone. This is precisely what I was afraid of. Zoe doesn't need her mom in a tabloid scandal. She thought of Zoe's hopeful words. I don't want Mr. Nate to leave. And the sting of past betrayals. I told you my life is complicated. I know, Nate said, his voice earnest. But I'm not backing down. I'll handle the press and keep you and Zoe out of it. I care about you, Aisha. Not just the center, but you. Her breath caught, his words piercing her guard. I need time, Nate. This is too much, too fast. She hung up, her heart racing. Zoe looked up, sensing her tension. Is Mr. Nate okay, Mom? He's fine, sweetheart, Aisha said, forcing a smile. Just grown-up stuff. But as she hugged Zoe, the fear of public scrutiny clashed with the warmth of Nate's promise. He'd fought for the center, for her. But could she trust him with her heart? That evening, Nate sat in his penthouse, the city lights dimmed by his resolve. He'd won the boardroom battle, but Victor's threat lingered, and Aisha's hesitation weighed heavier. He wasn't just fighting for a project anymore. He was fighting for a future where Aisha and Zoe could trust him to stay. The Carver Community Center glowed with string lights and laughter, transformed into a vibrant celebration for Zoe's birthday. Balloons in every color bobbed above tables laden with chocolate cake from Marino's bakery, Aisha Thompson's favorite. Children darted through the crowd, their voices mingling with the hum of neighbors sharing stories and plates of food. Aisha stood near the entrance, her red dress swapped for a comfortable sweater and jeans, her heart lighter than it had been in weeks. The center, now bustling with hope, was safe. Its renovation set to begin, thanks to Nate Whitmore's unwavering commitment. Nate had orchestrated the party as a surprise, coordinating with Keisha to invite the community while Aisha was at work. New computers gleamed in the center's freshly painted lab, a gift from Nate that had sent Zoe into squeals of delight. Aisha watched her daughter, now the center of attention, showing off her constellation painting to a cluster of friends. The artwork, a birthday gift for Aisha, hung proudly on the wall, its stars symbolizing their shared dreams. Nate approached, a tray of cupcakes in hand, his tailored jacket replaced with a casual button-down that made him blend into the crowd. I hope you're not mad about the surprise, he said, his smile tentative but warm. Zoe insisted on a big party for you too. Aisha's lips curved, her guard softening. It's perfect. Zoe's over the moon, and the community. They haven't stopped talking about the renovation. You did this, Nate. We did this, he corrected, setting the tray down. Your fight, your voice. That's what made it happen. I'm just following your lead. Aisha's chest tightened, his words echoing the journey they'd shared. The past weeks had tested her. Victor Lang's leaked photos had hit the local press, spinning a narrative of Nate's improper influence on her. She'd braced for judgment, for whispers about her place in his world. But Nate had acted swiftly, issuing a statement to clarify the project's integrity, and shielding her and Zoe from the spotlight. His resolve had chipped away at her fears, though trust still felt like a leap. Zoe bounded over, her face smeared with frosting. "Mr. Nate, you're my hero," she declared, hugging him. "The computers are so cool, and Mom loves her painting." She turned to Aisha, eyes shining. "You're happy, right, Mom?" Aisha pulled Zoe close, her throat tight. "Happier than ever, sweetheart." Zoe's joy was a mirror of her cautious hope, but it also carried the weight of her daughter's longing for stability, a longing Aisha had guarded since her ex's betrayal. Keisha joined them, a knowing grin on her face. "Told you worlds could collide," she teased, nudging Aisha. "Look at this place. New life, new love. You're welcome for my matchmaking." Aisha laughed, rolling her eyes. "You're taking too much credit." But as Keisha whisked Zoe away to dance, Aisha turned to Nate, her voice softer. "Thank you. For the center. For Zoe. For not giving up." Nate stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. "I meant what I said, Aisha. I'm here for you, for Zoe, for this. But I know it's not simple. Your life, your responsibilities. I don't take that lightly." Aisha nodded, her heart racing. She'd spent years building walls, protecting Zoe from the pain of abandonment, protecting herself from men who promised more than they gave. But Nate had shown up through boardroom battles, public scrutiny, and Zoe's starry-eyed trust. "I was scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of you leaving. Of Zoe getting hurt. But you're not him. You're here." "I am," Nate said, taking her hand. "And I want to stay, if you'll let me. We're different, Aisha, our worlds and lives, but we can learn from each other." She squeezed his hand, the warmth grounding her. "It won't be easy. The press, the center, Zoe, they're all part of this. But I'm willing to try." Nate's smile widened, a spark of hope in his eyes. "That's all I need." He leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead, the gesture tender amidst the party's chaos. Aisha closed her eyes, letting herself believe, just for a moment, that their worlds could merge. As the party wound down, the community gathered for a toast. Aisha raised her glass, her voice steady. "To the Carver Center, to our home, and new beginnings." The crowd cheered, and Nate's hand found hers, their fingers entwining. Zoe ran up, tugging at Aisha's sweater. "Can Mr. Nate come to our next movie night?" Aisha glanced at Nate, her smile tentative but genuine. "Suppose he's up for it." Nate grinned, ruffling Zoe's curls. "Count me in." Outside, the night air was cool, the city lights a backdrop to their shared promise. Victor's schemes had faded, and Nate's victory and the community's strength diminished his influence. But Aisha knew challenges remained: public perceptions, their differing lives, the work of building trust. As they stepped into the future, hand in hand, she felt a quiet certainty. Together, they could face anything.